What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily Podcast powered by Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. This Thursday, getting close to game time. Top 25 matchup. Didn't know that was going to be the case going into the year, but we've been covering it a lot. Had two USF experts on yesterday with Tito Banash, Josh Appel. Appreciate those guys. Now we're going from the Canes perspective with the fan favorite, the most requested. You guys ask about him all the time. Him and Amon are probably the two most requested guests we got. And that is Steve K9 Kim. We're bringing it in here in a second and get into it, man. We'll go all over the place as usual, but we'll try to stay on USF to a certain degree. Again, appreciate it for joining us. Always got to show appreciation for Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anijar and Levine. And before I hop anybody in, you may notice the background's a little different because if you want to be the best, we want to be the best. We want to be the best podcast, want to be the best content for you guys. You got to partner with the best, and that is UHealth and the University of Miami Sports Medicine Institute. Got a lot of athletes listening to the show. If you consider yourself an athlete or just an active guy like myself, you know how hard it is to sit on the injured list and rehab with an injury, maybe even try to hack your own rehab, Google stuff, figure it out. But if you don't want to compromise your movement, your performance, and you want to be the absolute best, call the experts at the University of Miami Sports Medicine Institute. So whether it's elite competition, like you see with the University of Miami Athletics, or just everyday movement, getting around, being active, the University of Miami Sports Medicine Institute is the trusted choice for those who demand excellence. Set an appointment today at UHealth Sports. All right. All that said, as we get ready to pack the rock and pour out a cup of electric juice, we introduce a man who stays on that electric juice, Steve Kim. Steve, how we doing?
Morning.
Real morning for you. You're out there in Las Vegas,
I'm in
right?
Vegas, by the way, for the Canelo Crawford fight. Yeah. A little bit of a remote setup here. I'm at my friend's house in Las Vegas. Here for a few days. Got some business to discuss. Loose ends to tie up before Canelo Crawford. But for anyone that's asking, I'm actually leaving probably at about 5:15 a.m. on Saturday, going over to Coach JB's house, and then we'll be doing, football palooza. And then eventually on his Patreon, I'll be doing a live watch-along stream of the fight. And it's not on pay-per-view. It's Netflix and chill Saturday night. But that's after a full day of college football, of course.
SDN says we need you two to suit up Saturday, take some reps at punter. Well, I don't know if the punter's going to be practicing too much on Saturday. At least I hope not. It didn't last year when we played these guys, and that's probably for the best if me and you are lining up at punter. I don't know, how's your foot game? How's your punting skill or kicking skill?
Well, I'm no John Lee, as I date myself, or my nephew for the Falcons. Missed that big kick.
Hasean Kim. Sorry, not Hasean Kim. Sorry, that's the shortstop. Young Ho Koo.
Yeah. By the way, hasn't Dylan Joyce been pretty good though? I mean,
he's been great.
I think our punting game our punting game starting with Pat O'Donnell. Remember him, the transfer? I think he came from Cincinnati. Yep. That's been one of our better, more consistent rooms the past 15 years. Now, that's not necessarily a good thing. Has been the kicking game, specifically punter.
Yeah, and these are big boys too. We've been like the body types looked right at punter before they looked right at offensive line and defensive line. Now we're finally we're back where we need to be in those positions. So Steve, 2 games in, you've seen Notre Dame. Now you've seen the annual kind of blowout game, and you've seen those go 2 different ways. I mean, we either one ugly or one clean. Where are you at right now with this team? Two games in,
right where they should be. I mean, Notre Dame was going to be a slobber knocker, and you kind of knew that. Bethune-Cookman was going to be more or less a glorified scrimmage. I think the only real bad news that we've had thus far is that Hayden Lowe, who I thought was going to be a contributor down the stretch as part of the rotation. I mean, again, if you have aspirations of doing big things, you're playing above 15 games. Every single body counts. And Bethune-Cookman, I thought, was really instructive or productive in a sense that we got to see some young kids get on the board statistically, get their feet wet. I get the sense Brock Schott's going to play a bigger role down the line. Some of the other younger kids defensively, like Wiley and Russell. Again, you need probably about 70 bodies that could play some sort of role if you really want to make a run here. Injuries are going to be a part of the game. It is what it is. So they're 2-0, and now, honestly, you call it a top 25 matchup. The way I look at it, no one's had a quality of first two victories the way USF has. In my particular poll, I think they can make an argument for top 10 or 12. I actually think they're still a bit underrated.
Yeah, the performance-wise, resume-wise, there's no question their coach is going to be a hot name on the coaching market as they continues. PA 1990 says, are you guys concerned about our defense when the quarterback gets out of the pocket? Had a couple breakdowns in the secondary first two games when the quarterback gets out and scrambles. I mean, I think really, at least let's look at the Notre Dame game. Bethune's tricky to kind of take anything from. But if you look at the Notre Dame game, Steve, you had a running back that was a threat to go 70 on you and really make explosive plays against you. And then two receivers who on paper, very productive players going into the game. So it seems like the threat level on USF is more about, bad communication because they ran too fast or they moved too fast and you weren't lined up properly, or just a quarterback running over you.
Well, you look at CJ Carr. Nobody thought he was mobile, right? And they hit us on the quarterback draw a few times. You watch USF. This is interesting. Byron Brown is the nucleus to that team. There's no doubt. And when they go empty, you don't think pass. You got to think +1. And it's not a quarterback draw they run. They run quarterback counter. Okay? So when they go empty, that whole first and second level of that defense has got to be on alert. There could be a quarterback run right here. They do a lot of that +1. I look back at a little bit of last year's game. Last year's game, people forget, with about 2.5 minutes to go before half, they were actually winning. And then they had that deep shot to Sam Brown down the sideline, and they missed a field goal late. That was a blowout that really was not as wide as the score indicated for much of that game. The real difference is last year they had this slot receiver who wore number 38, the white guy, Sean Atkins. He gave us absolute fits down the middle of the field. They don't really have him this year. I don't think they have a guy that's really a dependable every down receiver. They have Nashawn Singleton who made that big play, and they have a bunch of other guys. They have a Neptune and they have a Nimrod. They're serviceable for that type of style.
Neptune and Nimrod.
I guarantee you the game plan. Yeah, they have a Neptune and a Nimrod. But I guarantee you Heatherman this week has made a central focus is the quarterback run, the +1 series. Not so sure that was necessarily the case with CJ Carr.
You big guy in person, man. That's the thing that I think being up in Tampa, two things stood out to me about USF off the hoof, which is quarterback is really big. I mean, not just, G5 big. This is a big dude. And then the rest of the team, not as big right up front. So yeah. I think that's kind of the story, right? You got to take advantage of your matchup advantage when you have a bigger offensive line, a better offensive line, a bigger defensive line, bigger defensive line, and then mitigate the disadvantage, which is if maybe, Torre and Bassane are we're good enough at linebacker now and big enough at linebacker, we can deal with him. But when you get to the secondary, even with our improved secondary, I mean, this guy's going to run people over. He really is, as a runner, an impactful dude.
He's about 6'2", listed at 231. And he's not a skinny, lean human being. He's a guy that has a good forward lean. He throws well enough, but a lot of what they do is they'll call certain plays, much like a Rhett Lashley, and it's all about setting up a deep shot. Here's what I found interesting about the Florida game. I watched most of it, at least throughout the last 50 minutes. Early in that game, I don't understand why the Gators got away from Jaden Ball. Jaden Ball is your classic SEC workhorse back. He's a big back with a good forward lean. First 5 or 6 carries, Danny, they were gashing him, and they were physical. They were pushing a pile, and then they got away from him. The thing I kept thinking to myself was, I know we have a coach that will not allow themselves to get away from the run game. I expect a lot of body punching early on offensively from Miami.
Yeah, I think that's really, to me, what people don't understand. Not people. Most people understand this, but some people that are maybe grew up in this era of just, Big 12 teams and stuff, they don't understand about the running game. It's not just being effective running the football throughout the game. It's about the commitment to the running game. Steve, obviously you've been around, you've seen this for decades. It's the commitment to the running game. Last year against USF, we ran well in the beginning, but we ran really well in the second half. You recall that's when Jordan Lau had the long run and we were just kind of killing them because it wears you down. And I think when teams like Florida do not commit to the running game, it really lets the other team off the hook, in this case, USF. I mean, they were dying for DJ Lagway to keep passing, not because he's not capable of it, but because you see what happens. He can miss a throw. He can get flushed out of the pocket. He had a drop from Vernell Brown, who I think is an outstanding young player, but a freshman player dropped the pass. You get a holding call. You know, there's a million things that could happen. And then on the other side, you could spit in someone's face. You know, you could give up a big play. You really control the game running the ball. And you know, let me ask you this, Steve. I mean, we've had better running backs in the history of Miami, obviously, when you talk about the best running backs, some of the best running backs to ever play. Is this one of the best running games? At least let's just talk this year through last year, so we have enough sample size. Basically, the last year and a half, let's say. Is this one of the best running games with everything included, including the commitment to the run, that we've had in Miami?
You know, that remains to be seen. I think when you look at philosophy, identity, quality of offensive line, and depth at running back, it has the ingredients. Now, when I look back, the run that Don Solinger had as the running back coach, who basically handled his rotation. So we're talking about from about 97, 98, all the way to about 2002-ish. We went from Edgerrin James Jackson, and then we had Najee Davenport, Clinton Portis, James Jackson, and that was an unbelievable run. And, you know, the offensive lines got really elite by about 2000. That was the emergence of Bryant McKinney, Romberg, Marty Bibla, Joaquin Gonzalez. So we know what those guys did. I think it remains to be seen how good this unit will be. And I think going back to the Bethune-Cookman game, and good morning, Petey, I think that the emergence of Jared Pringle is another one. People think you need 3 running backs. I'm going to say it again. When you have to play 16, 17 games, I actually think you need 4. So I think he hopefully plays a role, but the ingredients are there for us to say in, let's say, 4.5 months, yes, this is one of the best running games Miami's ever had.
Well, Pete, I'm hopping you out so I can hop you back in. Pete, hop in. There he is. How we doing?
Morning, Petey.
Good morning, Steve. Yeah, I think it's going to just come down to have that conversation. For what you just said, they're going to have to be more explosive. And it's not just 50, 60 yard runs, but to me, and I think there's some people, talking to some people around the country, coaches across the country, there is a little bit of, hey, this team is 3.5 yards on the ground, that's what they feel like it is per carry, and I think that aspect of it, the fans talk about it. Sometimes we talk about the tight splits, but I think there's some people still trying to see, hey, is this a team that's yes, they can get you 3-4 yards at a time, but to have that conversation, I still want to see them, bust off some more explosives consistently.
Yeah, and Jordan Lyle going to be front and center for that, right? We got to get him going healthy. I think he's fine, but that's going to be a big one. So, Steve, Carson Beck 2 games in. I know we talked about him the first week. Different kind of performance against Bethune, but I didn't think it was out of character for him. In other words, he wasn't doing things different than he did against Notre Dame. He just had better talent advantage, right? So what are you seeing from Carson Beck as you get more and more information on him as the starting quarterback? You see how he interacts. You see how he reacts to things. Like, you've learned more about Carson Beck and the Orange and Green. Where are you at on him here week 2? I
would say the 2 words that come to mind are precision and efficiency. I didn't understand the narrative, guys, coming into the year, where I'd see these top 10 quarterback lists that had Lagway very high, and I like his upside, and then they also had Arch Manning above Carson Beck. I've never seen a player more overhyped than Arch Manning based on what they did previously in terms of the resume. But if you go back, all right, so let's take a look and throw out all the context. He had over 3,400 yards. He had about 28 touchdowns. Through right around mid-60s, 65, 66, where you want to be. The one part where I ding him, he had 12 interceptions. He needs to cut that in half. But I said to yourself, if you did a blind test and you said that quarterback, that baseline number right there, everything we talked about outside the interceptions, would you take it? I would say 99% of the country would say yes. Give us that production at quarterback. I think a lot of people had some issues about the outside stuff. I've actually been told, I've known some stuff. The prior relationship that he was in, I believe, caused a bit of an issue with his teammates at Georgia. My advice would be to every young quarterback that's going to be at a major program, I would choose carefully who you're with. And I've said this before. If you're a star quarterback, you don't need a celebrity wife in any way. I don't think – I just think there's too many things that go on. I think Carson was stifled. I think he was suffocated by that. And I've said before that when they broke up, it may have not been good for them, but it was great for us. And one thing that sold me about Carson, I did have some concerns about it. Is he really a football guy? Is he all in? Because we've had a quarterback recently or two. They weren't all in on football. He did an interview about 5-6 months ago with these guys that he knew. And I think it was like a faith-based podcast. And he said that there was this particular moment at Auburn. I remember watching this game with Coach JB. It's when Brock Bowers had an unbelievable game at the Plains. And they're 98 yards from winning the game. They're behind. And he said, my most memorable college football moment was being in that huddle. And I looked at all our guys and I said, hey, fellas, if we do this, you'll never forget this the rest of your life. This is why we are here. That interview kind of sold me like, okay, he's a football guy. He's all in. And based on everything that's been said and what we know and we can observe, it looks like he has clearly established himself as the leader, at least of this offensive unit.
Before I give it to Pete, real quick, I will amend slightly what you said, at least in my opinion. You know, Josh Allen's got a movie star wife. Tom Brady's did a bunch of celebrities. You got Brittany Mahomes posing in Sports Illustrated. I think once you get to the pros and you make a couple Pro Bowls, then maybe the rules change. Can we agree on that part?
Yeah, I think that there is an argument for that. But you have to understand, though, they're not specifically putting their social media and saying, hey, Carson, pose. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Hold on. Are you here for the relationship or the clout? I'm just telling you. I think that I'm not telling you. I've been told that was an issue in the locker room at UGA, that there started to be some eye rolling over this whole dynamic.
No, you're right.
I'll say this though, Steve, and I said it, and I'm not completely disagreeing with you, but I will say, and I've said this from the beginning, Beck and we've started. I think McShay said this. I sent you a link the other day, D. Beck, personality wise, is way more of a fit at Miami than at Georgia. I'll tell you this: if he was still dating her right now, I don't think it would be that big of an issue within the locker room, because it's Miami. Like, people know it's Miami. Guys like aren't. It's a little bit different of a culture. There's an understanding that that's what you're going to get down here. And I think his personality, not to go too much off on this conversation, but like, I think he just fits this city better. And Kyle's saying it too. And I think, Kyle, are you in South Carolina or Georgia? I think, right? But it's Miami. When you come to Miami, when these guys are visiting Miami, Steve, as recruits, they're shown this side of Miami. It's not something that the staff is hiding from them, right? They are glorifying. You're in the city of Miami, one of the best cities in the world, right? So that is my one thing to it. I'm not saying personally it couldn't have affected him. I'm not disagreeing there, but I just think if it was what you're saying is it was a locker room thing, I think if it was at Miami, and the fact that she was a Miami athlete too, I think that probably played more of a part of it in the Georgia side of things, but. It's a different discussion that we've obviously gone into the deep end on.
No, I want to ask Steve one thing, if he's noticed, because I did not realize this about Beck watching with Georgia. I guess maybe I just didn't notice, but seeing him in the stadium, and then later on TV, you see different angles, but even watching just in the stadium, this guy is a very expressive quarterback. You know, I thought he was more of like kind of your like, because he's low key off the field. That is true. I mean, what you said, Steve, about the mix of him being on social media and that hurting him in the Georgia locker room, I think that's true in the respect, and because he's not a social media guy. So like him being on social media after a loss because his girlfriend's doing it, that doesn't help him in the locker room. And that's not really his personality. But one thing I didn't realize about him, and this to Pete's point, this guy is pretty brash and pretty expressive on the field. He is not stoic at all. If you watch him in the stadium, he is constantly talking smack, pumping up the crowd, talking to his teammates in an animated fashion, not showing them up or anything bad, but just like he's not like, you know, buttoned up kind of dude. He's pretty animated. And I didn't know that, I guess, until he got here.
Yeah. The word that I would use in terms of what I've noticed on the sideline, and again, I've not really studied this, but this is what I have observed from what has been televised. He's very personable with his teammates. And I felt this for a while. The quarterback is no worse or no less than the second most important person in that football building at a major football school. They hold so much in the hands that they have job security in their hands. They have my happiness in their hands. They have the wins and losses in their hands. And you have to be a leader. It's the one sport where you could be the best baseball player in the world. You could be Barry Bonds. It doesn't matter. It's a very individual sport played within a team concept. Football is 11 men working together at once. And really, you have to be the leader of 85 to 100 individuals because you are the face of the program. I mean, think about it. There are many cities or towns in America where they know who your starting quarterback is. They may not even know who their local politicians are. Now, you can talk about, is that right? Or we have the wrong priorities? That's a whole different subject. But the way he interacts with his teammates and the way he has immersed himself in the team is very much like Cam Ward. Let's be very blunt about it. With Tyler Van Dyke, there were some questions about how committed is he? Is he a personable guy? Is he one of the pack? So I think those things are important. They may not always show up statistically, but I would much rather have a quarterback that is part of the group than that is not.
Steve, what's going on? I see you doing homework. I know something good's coming.
I keep this roster here next to me, and I've said this the last couple of days here, but I'm concerned about that second, third defensive line unit. I'm not saying the third D line unit's not going to be playing out there together as a whole, but the Hayden Lowe injury, not a good one. I mean, it's a freshman, but you're expecting him to be in that rotation. And McConaughey's still hurt. He was someone who was getting snaps against Louisville last year on fourth downs. I think they can manage most of this ACC schedule, but concerning, man. Really, really concerning to me.
Petey, you know how you mitigate that? You keep them off the field.
Yeah.
That's a Bill Belichickism. Look, one of the ways you protect bad players is not, or guys that aren't ready to play, or a little bit of a lack of depth, keep them off the field. That's why, look, we may not score 40 to 45 points a game like they did last year. That may have been a bit of an anomaly. But that was also due to necessity. If Miami can just stay within, let's say, 37 to 38, that puts you in the upper quarter nationally on par in terms of points per game. But let's say you squeeze out 4 to 5 minutes more of time of possession and you're better defensively. I do think that. So if you limit the plays defensively or limit the time that your defense is out there taking snaps, Petey, those things that you talked about may not necessarily be able to be addressed till the next off season, but they can be mitigated.
Here's the thing for me, as Devin Ayers says, time for Malik Bryant and Booker Pickett and a few others step up. Yeah. I think Malik Bryant's a really good player. I think he's a nice player for the role that he's going to play. I think Booker Pickett could be a good player, but these are different body types than the guys who are getting hurt here. And D, you mentioned, for example, maybe Bain ends up kind of backing up, or Mesidor plays kind of behind Bain in that. In that role there as the other, big DN on the other side there. But I don't know, man. I just to be dealing with this early in the season, you should be able to get through here the next couple weeks. I think without an issue. But you have another injury there, and guys who haven't stayed healthy at times either. So it's just something on my radar that was the big bodies on the D line was something that I was, kind of had on my radar before the season. And I don't know that anything's been shown yet to kind of dispel that. Not that they want to play with bigger guys inside, as we've seen. That's not what Heather wants to do. But yeah, man, that's
But guys, another way you can mitigate that? Playing from ahead. I mean, Bill Walsh had a very simple philosophy. Bill Walsh I've read books on this, and Bill Walsh has always said, one thing you'll never hear me say is I'll never establish the run game. And they said, really? He goes, no, I establish points. And if that's through running, I'll call runs. My job and my goal every game is to score points early and often. And this is what he wants. I want to run the ball late in games when I'm ahead, and then I want to have pass rushers to finish out the game. So style of game does matter. And I thought last year was such a wasted opportunity for our defense because we were given big leads. But if you allow your defensive linemen in the last 15 to 20 minutes of a game to have a 17-point lead, and then Heatherman says to his guys, hey, guys, there's no run game anymore. Everything's throw game. Let's go NASCAR package. Well, guess what? That's a different style of game for defensive linemen. And that's where, again, you can mitigate the lack of size on your second and third units.
Shout out to Alex Dono with the good morning. Appreciate you. Good morning to you as well. One of the best in the business.
Alex, good morning.
Great dude, killing it. Steve, one thing you do with Coach JB, which by the way, make sure you get your plugs in. Lord knows I do, is you talk about college football on the whole, right? So you talk about what you saw over the course of the weekend. I know you watch games, you rewatch games. Last week, kind of a light week in terms of just major national matchups, but through 2 weeks, any kind of national trends or things catching your attention in the college football world? Could be specific.
The team that really opened my eyes, and I know they're down, the opponent. I think Oregon is not going anywhere, fellas. I think they have a quarterback with a higher ceiling than the previous two guys who are on NFL rosters. I remember Dante Moore as a freshman at UCLA. You could see how live his arm was, but he was not ready to play as a true freshman. And as soon as teams, I think that may have been Chip Kelly's last season, when they started sitting on his RPO, it just fell apart and he really didn't play that much. Dante Moore raises the ceiling of that whole offense that Will Stein runs. And Dracorian Moore, I know a lot of the recruiting gurus know his name. He looks like he's already a guy. I get the sense Oregon, at the very least, will be in the Final Four this year. I think that's one trend. I don't think people are talking about it enough. The other thing is, guys, I think some of these teams that are brand names that we know of, and again, I think last week there's a little bit of something of a factor. Those lightning delays, the weather delays, it kills your mojo. But I think teams like Georgia, Clemson, I may have overrated. I don't think they're quite as good as we thought, guys, honestly. And I get it. I was watching Clemson, and I know they were down 16-3. I think it went beyond that. They offensively, Cade Klubnik, I think I was one of the many people that probably overrated him a bit.
So I agree with you on both points strongly. I mean, Clemson, I think they're a team that can beat you, obviously, meaning they beat Miami. They can beat a lot of teams on a good day. They have great receivers. They have great coaching and culture. They won the ACC last year when they really shouldn't have. So that shows you just kind of how durable their culture is. But their talent is overstated by the media, similar to Florida, quite frankly. They're just not. When you look at Clemson, I said this last year, they're not a big team. They just don't have, there's no Dexter Lawrence kind of running around for Clemson. They're just, to me, they're small. They lack depth. They can't run the ball. They cannot stop the run. They have good receivers. Cade Klubnik's a good college quarterback, does not have overwhelming talent physically. So, I mean, when you just look at their pure talent, they can win. They have good culture. They're a championship program, but I just don't see the dudes. Whereas with Oregon, Decorian Moore, someone, Pete, we talked about it before the season, that this was like the freshman I thought to watch in the country to be the next Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams. Not saying that exact type of player, but the guy that's a star right away. He is absolutely special. He's got a strong lower body. He's fast as hell. He can change directions. He can catch. He has strong hands, good aggressive mentality. He's a complete stud. And I agree with you, Steve. Dante Moore has way more upside than what you had with Dylan Gabriel. And he's also very good mentally. At least he has been to this point in his career. So we'll see when they get challenged a little bit. We'll see what the defense looks like against, like real competition. But because they had to replace a lot of guys. But I'm with you, man. I think Oregon is going to be one of those teams that ends up being a complete operation, similar to LSU, and quite frankly, similar to Miami. I think they can run, they can throw, they can stop the run, they can play defense, and they have a quarterback.
Another trend, what have I seen? The young quarterbacks. Everyone talks about the Underwood, Bryce Underwood at Michigan. I like him. Don't have a lot of talent outside. As I like to say, Anthony Carter ain't walking through that door, neither is Braylon Edwards. The most impressive young quarterback I've seen this year, and Coach JB actually likes him, and he likes very few quarterbacks nowadays, J.K. Sagapulitelli at Cal. Wow. That's a gunslinger with a quick trigger release. Smooth, he's big, he can operate inside the pocket. His pass placement is elite. Now, I don't know how long Cal's going to keep him. this could be just another addition of Fernando Mendoza. But when I see him, I say, that might be the guy that nobody is talking about that they should be.
Yeah, again, another guy me and Pete were real high on coming out of high school. He broke Dylan Gabriel's records in Hawaii. I mean, this guy was really productive. You see the arm strength. It's a crazy way of college football now where you're already kind of plotting to see where he could land, right? Because Ohio State has a young quarterback.
Yeah.
Oregon, you're going to have Dante Moore, you think, for another year. Even though I think he's eligible, but I wouldn't imagine.
Well, Danny, he was at Oregon for about 15 minutes. He saw Dante and he said, I'm out.
And he made the right decision. I mean, he's going to get a lot of money now having played and shown what he can do. But I'm just like looking at the different places where he could possibly land. I mean,
and by the way, if I'm a young quarterback, like I look at a situation like that and say, hey, I don't have to go to a top 10 team right off the bat. I want to go somewhere that's going to give me an opportunity to play and start. And if you do what you're supposed to do, and by the way, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to show some of that 5-star rating. Someone's going to pay you. Someone's going to pay you. So I think that's another interesting part of it. I think that maybe the quarterback position, the way that we see guys, yes, they end up transferring, but like, I still think those top 10, top 20 type quarterbacks are kind of stacking up at certain programs, not the same way that it's kind of filtering out with NIL and with there being a little bit more parity. That I think that maybe some of these top flight quarterbacks say, yeah, I can go be a Julian Sain and sit a year, but the situation has to be perfect for me to be able to go in there and do that. So
yeah, fellas, if I'm Ron Rivera, their GM and great alumnus, the first thing I'm doing right now, I'm raising money to keep JKS. I don't even know if it's going to matter, but you look at Cal last year. I was at that game. So look, they have Mendoza, and Danny, you called it before everybody. That guy's an NFL prospect, not just a draftable guy. I'm talking about a guy that many people now mock in the first round. So shout out to you. Jade Knott, when healthy, is a frontline running back. Jack Endries, their tight end. He's at a major school. I believe he's at Texas, who's going to contend for a national title. And their other running back, Gavion the Jet Thomas, he went back, I think he went to UCLA. He's a productive player. You look at Cal, they actually had a decent team last year. They were about, 14 points from being a 10-win team, if you really look at the scores. I don't know what Ron Rivera has in mind, but if you are the Cal boosters and you care about football and you think, okay, are we going to make a run here or not, every single dollar has to be raised, basically, to keep that kid in the fold. That is college football in 2025.
Steve, to your point on Cal, 3 defensive backs drafted last year, and the linebacker Teddy Buchanan drafted, and they had the good one that they brought back. I think he's Paulie kid, the linebacker they brought back. I forget his name.
Julio, I think his name. Julio or something.
But yeah, I mean, Cal's got talent. It's amazing some of the teams that Cam made look so bad. By the way, shout out to Cam. I loved his answers in the press conference when he didn't throw his receivers under the bus. He didn't throw his offensive line under the bus. He said, hey, you try to block. Now, obviously, we know his offensive line stunk, but I'm sure that's going to make him very popular in the locker room for being not just defending his guys, but kind of being also on the offense, defending his guys. That's going to make him pretty popular in the locker room. So shout out to Cam. But yeah, Steve, just in general, kind of talking about college football, Mateer is another name that I know Raymond's talking about in the comments. I think Mateer, to me, is a super talented guy, super fun to watch. I wanted him on the Canes. I had 3 guys on my list, basically, Mateer, Mendoza, and then when Beck jumped in, Beck. But with Mateer, I'm not sure that he's getting Heisman hype, but I think he's got a couple stinkers in him with his style of play and the competition they're facing.
Danny, that second half of that Sooner schedule is a gauntlet. And we were watching most of that game, me and Coach JB. One thing we noted, guys, and we saw this at the end with the box score, guys, he had 16, 17 rushing attempts. That's a physical style. And he's not afraid to throw his head into a pile of bodies. Now, Michigan is a really good defense. There's some pretty good defenses in that conference that he plays in. How sustainable is that physically? I like to keep my quarterbacks clean. Even if you have the most athletic quarterback in today's game, I would limit my +1. Because look, Byron Brown, as much as I like him, Guys, he got knocked out against Miami. And guess what? After game 5, he didn't play last year for USF. That type of style is very difficult on quarterbacks.
P, what you got? I see you flexing over there.
Not flexing.
Oh, that's the resting guns right there from Peter Rees.
I like Mateer. I think he's he's obviously one of the many Miami had their eyes on in the offseason for good reason. He's got a little bit of a quirky release, but he's twitchy, man. I love that style of quarterback. I think really puts a lot of pressure on the defense. Really, as a defensive coordinator, there's a lot of things you can do, but I also give a lot of credit to the offensive coordinator, the guy they brought over from Washington State. I mean, he seems like a big time play caller. So,
Pete, by the way, I agree, man. I love Mateer, and Steve, we've talked about this on the show, and this is something that's kind of like close to my heart, which is I always say, if you're getting quarterbacks out of high school and you want to limit your chance of failure, right? You want to just kind of make a list of players that is curated for success. They're not all going to be successful, but you want to remove guys that are going to be likely to bust. To me, I am immediately cutting off anybody from my list. This is me personally, that is not a multi-sport athlete, or somebody who is just like a dynamic special runner like a Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts, who only played football, but they were almost like two football players, right? Because they were a runner and they were a thrower. And if you look at the top quarterbacks right now, John Mateer, baseball player, you see how he throws the ball, right? He's clearly a baseball player at heart, and he's a runner as well. 3-star, 2-star player. Lenora Sellers, I don't know where he was ranked. He was not a top 10 quarterback in the country, I don't believe. Soccer player growing up, also a dynamic runner. Carson Beck, baseball player. The guys that are really the exceptional quarterbacks last year, Cam Ward, basketball player. I mean, you go up and down the line, going back, to some of the guys from the year before. If you're not either a legitimate running threat, meaning like you run for 60-yard touchdowns, or you're a multi-sport kid, or both, I'm crossing you off my list, because the chances are, in my view, you're going to be like a Jake Garcia and just be like a camp guy that can't function in a game setting. I don't know what you think about that. Yeah,
the thing is, though, and I know Rudy Carpenter very well, who was instrumental in the development of Brad Kaya, and he stays in football. He coaches and instructs, and he says one of the issues is this thing has become a year-round operation, though, being a quarterback. I don't know how. I mean, when I was growing up as a kid, I remember multi-sport stars all over the place, whether it was Staves Bozeman, who went to Morningside High School out of here in L.A., and then he went to USC, more or less played basketball, didn't play football. Allen Iverson played both sports. He played basketball and football. He was actually a very good quarterback. Nowadays would probably be a prototype in the spread. Tony Gonzalez played basketball. He was good enough to play at Cal, Division I, on a tournament team. But the quarterback position specifically, guys, has become so specialized in these spots to get that scholarship at a certain school. You got to lock in by almost like your sophomore year now. There's such a competition in terms of that aspect. I don't know how many parents and kids are willing to say, you know what? We could take 4 months off here to play baseball. We can get back to this. There's so much money involved now. Players and parents themselves have turned this into a year-round business, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it's killing the kids. I mean, you look at all those California quarterbacks and all respect to the quarterback trainers, and these players get quarterback trainers eventually too. But the guys that they just live with these players and they don't do any other sports, those guys fail. I mean, if you look at the NFL and you say, where are the multi-sport guys gone? They're all in the NFL making millions of dollars, because it's Josh Allen, 3-star, 0-star actually, played every sport. Justin Herbert, 3-star, played every sport. Patrick Mahomes, 3-star, played every sport. Joe Burrow, borderline 3-4-star, basketball player first. Look at some of the guys entering the league. Cam Ward, basketball player first. Jaden Daniels, elite runner. Jalen Hurts, elite runner. Lamar Jackson, elite runner. I mean, these are the quarterbacks. CJ Stroud, he does multi-sport routine before he even plays in games. So this idea that you can get these guys that are that are productive in high school and do great in camps, and they don't play any other sports and they don't run. And look, I'm saying this, Miami's recruiting some of these guys. So I'm not saying this because to defend anything Miami's doing, because Miami to me is not abiding by what I believe. And that doesn't mean I'm right. I don't agree with some of that. What you have to, in my view, if someone does not play, and maybe you'll miss on a couple good players, but to me, if someone's not playing another sport or is not a dominant runner, and again, Miami's recruiting some of these guys. So I could be proven wrong. I hope I am with respect to these players that come to Miami, but I just think there's a huge chance that they're going to fail.
Yeah, I'm with you, but I still remember Kenny Kelly. He was a legitimate major league prospect, and I know he actually got a cup of coffee at the big show. I think, and it's interesting because when I look back at the Kenny Kelly era, number one, I don't think he was a pro-style quarterback. I think we should have gone full-blown spread with him. And no one really was doing it at that. I still remember that comeback at Boston College. They actually went hurry-up spread, and I always think, wow, we should have just stuck with that. But Kenny Kelly, I remember, and this would never be allowed today, guys, didn't he miss portions of spring ball? And that used to kind of like really kind of chap Butch Davis's hide a little bit. And then I remember the 99 year. Yeah. And so I remember it was made clear to him after the 99 Gator Bowl of 2000, Dorsey had a really strong finish to his true freshman year. Butch Davis basically said, number one, the job is up for grabs. Number two, you better show up for spring ball. And at that point, Kenny Kelly no longer played football. I think he's the one guy that would really what I would classify as an elite dual sport athlete that Miami's had at quarterback. I know Dorsey played some basketball. I don't know with Brock Berlin. I don't know if he played another sport. He was kind of short. Vinny Testaverde, I never heard of him playing anything. Bernie Kosar, I can't imagine him playing anything but football. I just look back. How many multi-sport quarterbacks has Miami had then?
Dorsey for sure. Dorsey for sure.
Right?
He got offered on the basketball court. Butch Davis went and watched him play basketball. That's when he said he fell in love with them. Cam Ward for sure. Some of those guys may have played baseball, but again, that's a different era too. I just think with the way the traffic is around these quarterbacks, and really, it's also a lot easier in my view to pass nowadays because of it's just the rules. So like if you're a Joe Burrow, so Joe Burrow is the example I always use because Urban Meyer said that when he first got to Ohio State, he was throwing next to the late Dwayne Haskins, who is now obviously deceased, but he was a highly rated quarterback. And he said that it was a joke comparing Joe Burrow to Dwayne Haskins when they first got to Ohio State. He said like it was like a walk-on versus a senior, comparing those two players throwing the ball on air. But when you put Joe Burrow in pads, his spatial awareness, his movement with guys flying after him was next level. And then because the way it is now, you can develop passing more easily. You've seen Lamar Jackson develop his passing, Josh Allen, that Burrow from his first day at Ohio State to his last year at LSU, his passing, when he focused on it, kind of improved night and day. So I don't know if maybe it's just a new era of football, but I am not seeing anybody succeeding in this era of football at a high level that cannot really feel bodies around them and make plays that you just can't get training football year round. That's again, my soapbox. I do this all the time, but I keep seeing examples of it with Mateer being the latest.
Ja'Cory Harris, I didn't hear about him playing any of the sports. Robert Marv, I didn't hear him playing any of the sports. I know Jaron Williams was one of those coached up kids. He has one of those famous coaches. And, he had other issues. Let's see. Tyler Van Dyke liked to golf, so I don't know if
he's a pitcher.
He was a baseball player, yeah.
Okay, he was a baseball player. So okay. So
you see the position, right? Because Tyler Van Dyke's a pitcher. So what are pitchers? They're in their head a little bit, right? They're because they can go up and they can lose it totally because they control the whole thing. They're in their head. They're by themselves. Whereas like Marino is a third baseman. I believe Elway was Elway played somewhere in the field. Mahomes was a second baseman, kind of action positions. Carson Beck was a third baseman. He was never a pitcher. He was a catcher as well. So I wonder if when it comes to the baseball part, being a pitcher, you would think it would translate more. Tom Brady was a catcher. You think pitching would translate more to quarterback, but really it doesn't because you're not around anybody. You control everything. There's no, line drives flying at you have to react to or plays you have to make kind of on the move. You're basically just throwing and hitting a target, which for a guy like TVD, there wasn't, he had the ability to get the yips.
Yeah.
As we saw.
The ability? He did. Hey, I have a question. Does Darion Coleman play any other sports?
No, I mean, Darren Coleman, I gotta be honest, there's a lot of red flags in his profile, but the guy's a really good player. So I know everyone at UM is very bullish on him. I know he's having a lot of success in college. So I am praying he is an anomaly.
He looks like a modern day spread quarterback that you can just sling it all over and run up tempo, and he's got athleticism. That if he wins that job, and again, I'm certainly not counting out Luke Nickel, it'll be interesting to see what type of base offensive philosophy we're going to use with him. Because I've said this before, if Brock Berlin is allowed to play in a shotgun spread, which is all he did in high school, that 2003 team had a national championship defense, and I think they squandered it by fitting a square peg into a round hole.
I went on my soapbox, by the way, with this. Well, when really we've got to be talking to you. I apologize, Steve. So, Steve, what's on your what soapbox are you on?
I was going to bring some. Can I bring something up real quick?
Go ahead, Pete.
Just because there was a couple of comments about this from our boy WG, I think. Well, first of all, we had this comment. I don't know if we brought this up from Zach. Appreciate you, Zach. Says Steve's the GOAT. Found out about him on Coach JB and Whitlock about a year ago. Here it is. So WG had a couple comments about Poyser. He doesn't think he's played very well. And he also says Fitzgerald Poyser, which, I'm not saying that may not be the case down the line or as we see throughout the season. But has Poyser done anything that's like horrible? I mean, that pass interference against Notre Dame was him, right? But that was questionable. I don't think that Notre Dame tested us down the field enough for us to really have, too much of an opinion on how he played.
To that question, I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with that comment. Maybe the individuals watched it closer than I will say this. Look, I don't think he's been Sean Taylor, Ed Reed, or Benny Blades, but thus far, and it's early, there haven't been any plays or situations thus far where I said, ugh. I mean, last year's safety play was the worst I've ever seen at Miami. And I know what the numbers say. I know what the metrics say. But I have a theory that if you're not going to be a great player, which is fine because there's very few of those, you can't be a bad player. And I thought last year's defensive backfield had too many bad players. Some of them are no longer here. I don't want to say any names. I haven't seen any particular moment where I said, wow, we got to pull number 7.
Well, and here's the thing, Steve, and not to cut you off, but I bring this comment up asking, are you taking Poyser or Mish Powell? The thing about Poyser is, and what I've known about, I'm talking to a guy like Terry Jefferson who coached him when he first came into Jacksonville State, is he's a raw player. He's a traits based. He's got speed. He's got size. Mish Powell had it up here. But sometimes you can be in the right spot, be in the right place, be there, and still you just don't. You can't make the play because you don't have it physically. I'll take my chances on an athlete with Poyser's background and what he can do over what you had back there last year. And I'm thinking, I'm not disagreeing too with some. There was a play against Notre Dame, as Yusuf says, there was a weird angle he took on it, wasn't great. But I'm hoping that you're betting on the athlete there. He's getting coached up. He gets more confident, I'll say, throughout there. Because we talk about confidence with offensive players. Oh, this guy needs confidence. Defensive players, a guy at the safety spot who's going to be the last line of defense, they need confidence too. So I'm not hitting the panic button there. I know the sort of athlete he is and the excitement there was about him coming in and the weight that he's put on. So I'm not hitting that panic button there. I'll bet on the athlete.
Yeah, and Petey, I think he came in with 3 years of eligibility. So we're talking about a player that still needed development. I believe he was a freshman All-American at Jacksonville State, but I think that was an emphasis you've talked about, Danny. They're trying to get players out of the portal that just aren't going to be one-year rentals.
Yeah, I mean,
some of these guys still have a ceiling that has to be reached.
Secondary, particularly, you look at not just Poyser, you have Lucas, you have O'Connor. Those are all guys with multiple years of eligibility. They can't even go pro yet. I guess Poyser can go pro as a redshirt sophomore. I don't think he will. Lucas, a true sophomore. Ethan O'Connor. Also, I guess he's a redshirt sophomore, so he's draft eligible, but again, not likely to go pro. So those are guys with a lot of eligibility, and you develop them, right? I mean, that's the part of the portal people don't talk about is a lot of these guys you see get drafted, you go back and look and you're like, oh, wow, I didn't remember this player in the portal, but he started somewhere else because maybe they weren't as, finished. They weren't finished products when they left in the portal. Like, Caleb Downs, even though he's a freshman, he was already kind of
ready-made.
Yeah. Whereas some of these other guys, they develop at their new spots. And that could be
bagging up makes a point that I was kind of saying too. He's like, we'll see some real speed at wide receiver and guys who can win vertically in the ACC. We haven't been tested. I think that's when you'll see Poiser. You see some of the stuff from Jacksonville State when the ball's in the air, tracking guys down the field. He gives you a lot there. So let's see.
Wait, hold on. Can I call BS for a second? And I love bagging up. He probably thinks I'm mad at him. So we're always going out of here. I love bagging up. I appreciate his contributions. But I mean, Jaden Greathouse, unless I'm missing something, had 128 yards in the college football national championship. He had 105 yards in the semis. So
yeah, but they weren't. I'm sorry, D. They weren't trying to throw the ball downfield in that game. I think that's a fair point that they didn't test them down the field. Whether or not Miami took that away or not, for sure. But like when you play SMU later in the season, you've got to go against a Romello Brinson on the outside there. You're talking about a different beast.
Romello with that circus catch early on.
But I think it's fair to say they didn't test Miami down the field, D. They weren't.
I mean, I think Ohio State, if we're playing Ohio State in the playoffs, that's a different ball game. I don't think you're going to see better receivers in the ACC than what we saw on the opening
I think
game.
that if Miami played Notre Dame again at a different point of the year, and yes, it's hypothetical, but they would call the game a bit differently. As bagging up, this is what I'm saying. They didn't no deep shots. It was everything to the outside.
To your point, one of the games I'll be keeping an eye on, it'll be right on after the Miami USF game, is Notre Dame hosting A&M. That has a lot of ramifications for Notre Dame. If they want to stay in the thick of this playoff tournament, they've got to win that game at home. There's a revenge factor with Elko and the Aggies. And it's one of those things that's great about college football. As soon as you beat a team, guys, especially when it was just a poll era, you wanted all of your teams that you beat to then win a lot of games because it'd be a strength of schedule. So there's a part of me that actually wants Notre Dame to beat A&M. So that'll be interesting to see what type of game do they call. Because remember, they had a bye week. So CJ Carr had a good ending to the Miami game, came on, got better. You have a bye week. You get a game plan for about 13, 14 days. Now you're at home. I want to see what Denbrock has in mind for this offense, game number 2.
Steve, when do we lose you? It's 10:05. When do we lose you?
I got about 10 more minutes, fellas.
Before we finish up, just you're in Vegas for a reason. Let everybody know real quick why you're in Vegas and where they can find you before.
Well, I cover boxing by trade the last 25 or so years. So here doing some business in Las Vegas. I'm at my friend's house, a big palatial estate that he has. So you could read my stuff on Twitter at SteveKim323 and on Instagram, Steve Orale Kim. Shout out to East LA. And then you can read my stuff, my latest columns on snack.com, Canine's Corner, twice a week about boxing. And then I also do the Coach JB show. I'll be on there in about 15 minutes. And then I'm on with Jason Whitlock Fearless. I'm a regular contributor there. And I do the 3 knockdown rule, talking about boxing and other subjects with Mario Lopez. Yes, that one. That guy.
Palatial Estates, man. Wow.
Vegas Cane's saying, I wonder if Steve's near me. Summerlin the Riches. We won't give you your location, man. I know you're a controversial guy.
Summer, okay.
So it's Macaron Tallis. Let's talk CIS. He says, let's talk USF. Cliff Dubois says, Steve's great for CIS. I agree. This is a great question. This is somewhat USF related, but Steve, I want to ask you this. This is a great question from Nashville Kane. Of the next 3 opponents, which is, for those who don't know, there's the state championship. So you got Brown at USF, you got DJ Lagway at Florida, and you got Tommy Castellanos, the luchador, at Florida State. Which of those 3 quarterbacks worries you the most?
Believe it or not, Castellanos. He's a quick, twitchy, wild card athlete, and he plays us at home, Tallahassee. I think that's October 4th, right? We get Lagway, who I believe is impacted by a lack of practice. Yeah, man, we're talking about practice. It matters, kids. I like Lagway a lot. Has a very high ceiling, but he looks a little bit heavy. Practice time matters. He looks a little bit out of rhythm. And Sean King on JB's show, who coached quarterbacks at USF, by the way, had a long pro career. He says Lagway's mechanics are always going to keep him from being the most accurate he can be. And you look at his release, it's a little bit low, and balls do sail on him. But again, big upside. Well, Byron Brown is really the nucleus to that whole system. But again, Castellanos gets to play us in Tallahassee. And I think I've said this for months. Him and Gus Malzahn are a perfect fit. I did not think DJU, forget the ability. What DJU can do well does not fit with what Norvell usually wants. I never understood that particular transaction. These guys fit like a glove. So I would say based on all of those things that I talked about, I will go with the little Bambino, Thomas Castellanos.
What about you, Pete? This is an interesting question. I want to get your thoughts.
I agree. Yeah, I think out in space he's going to be tough to deal with. I think the game plan they put together will be very specific, and we'll try to play on just the inherent, aggressive nature that you expect Miami to play with. And the O-line's improved, man. The O-line is much improved. I think we talked about it with group chat over the offseason. They had some nice pickups, some good veteran pickups. The kid from Vanderbilt, what was his name?
Deuce
Hansen?
Robinson.
Or
yeah.
Petey. No, Gunnar Hansen. Yeah.
Gunnar Hansen, on the O-line. Go ahead, Steve.
Deuce Robinson at USC. I got to watch a lot of his games, and I said, geez, he's actually going to be our problem. Makai Danzy, young playmaker. And last year, Jalen Lucas, who's a quick little guy that fits. He got injured early last year. He only played about 2 games.
Yeah.
So you look at those guys that they have. Gus Malzahn has a lot to work with. I don't think their early success is a mirage. I think they're going to be a threat the whole year offensively.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to still go with Lagway, and maybe this is me just digging in my heels because I thought this guy was good. But I just think with Castellanos and Brown, if they play their absolute best and we play our absolute best, we'll stop them because they're just not that talented.
Yeah,
they're talented at what they do. I mean, Castellanos is not going to go pro in something other than football, and Brown is going to go pro in something other than football unless he switches positions. Whereas Lagway, if he's on, if Lagway's on, he can make throws and hurt you if he's on. And then and he's so big and his arm is so good that you can play perfect defense. And he can still kind of throw it over you and throw it right into those tight windows if he's on. So it's kind of in his control. Whereas the other guys, they're limited. So that's what I would say, but I could be wrong.
I don't. But the problem is, we don't know what the best is.
Danny, Lagway has unbelievable arm talent. That rope that he threw against Georgia down the seam, I was like, wow. I mean, it was like a Jeff George type of throw. The thing was a laser, but it was soft. I was like, ooh, that guy. But again, he did not practice. He seems out of sync. Speaking of Byron Brown, look, he's a big athlete. He could play. Look, PJ Daniels, remember him? He actually played a few years with the Niners, didn't he? He made the league, and he wasn't exactly a prototype quarterback. You're right. I think Byron Brown will make pros or the league. It may just not be a quarterback. He's a pretty good athlete, 6'2", 231. There's some stuff to work with there.
I said he reminded me of Trey Burton.
Yeah. So he play a little tight end, H-back. By the way, guys, looking at USF's defense, 2 guys really stood out, Deshaun Rucker and I believe Matt Karras. They have some really active guys. And the thing that scares me about these games when you play a USF or even maybe a UCF, they look at this game as a Super Bowl. Anytime they play the big 3, 80% of those guys are probably from Florida. They all have a chip on their shoulder. They all think they should have been recruited by FSU, Florida, or Miami. And they circle those games on the calendar. And it would not surprise me if some of these guys think, I'm going to play harder than I ever have in my life. And I give USF credit, guys. Isn't this a correct statement? In the last 15 or so years, doesn't USF have victories over all 3 of the big Florida schools?
Yeah.
Beat us in 2010, beat FSU Florida last week. And I know USF beat FSU one of those years. That's a real program.
and forget historically, they just beat Florida last week. So they're definitely going to have the confidence that this team can do it. So I think Miami wins handily by 2-3 scores here, and it's not much of a concern for us. But yeah, so it's not a bad team.
And by the way, guys, next week I'll be flying in for the Florida Gator game. Hopefully we will be 3-0. We're gonna have a great time. Look forward to seeing you guys out there. It's gonna be a fun time. It's always a fun time.
We got to go to Islas Canarias and get the quince croqueta.
Well, I will text you when I get in. We will make time for that, Danny.
I missed you last time, Steve. I'll make sure that I see you this time.
I can't look, Tiger. I can't disrupt you on the 14th hole.
It was a big round, man. It was a big round I was having at the Biltmore right down the street, but I had dinner plans right after, so I could not make it.
And I want to give a shout out to Duffy's Tavern, the Miami institution. They're making upgrades now. They're keeping the foundation, but they're adding to it and they're evolving it. And I kept thinking we couldn't do this with the Orange Bowl. But still, Duffy's Tavern, what a spot. That's a place where everyone knows your name.
The TVs are in, Steve. I was there late last week, and man, it's the TV setup is as good as anywhere in Miami, I'm telling you.
Flat screens. They got rid of those old Magnavoxes from 1989. They got the old flat screens and all that other stuff. They're taking credit cards now. I put down my Discover, was proud to do so. Great.
Man, Steve, you're taking my sponsorship. I got to send you the money. But no, man, this was we believe in it. We went out there. You were there anyways. So I was like, all right, man, that's easy. Let me roll through there. It's like the Canes. It's a great brand. It's a great location. It's a great institution. You just got to have the right leadership, and I think they do have that, and that's why you're seeing improvements, just like you're seeing with the Canes. So, Steve, we'll let you go. Big fight this weekend. What's your fight coverage? Well, like, what do you do? What are you doing on the fight?
I wrote a story about how Raul Garcia, who's known Terrence Crawford since the amateurs, he actually thinks Crawford's going to win the fight. My latest story on snac.com, Canine's Corner, is about the undercard. And, look, we'll be talking about the fight next week. But like I told you guys, at 5:15 a.m. on Saturday morning, I'm going to be going to Coach JB's for Football Palooza. And for those of you in the LA area that are bitching about the Miami game being on CW, guys, that's Channel 5. Come on. You used to watch Dawson's Creek on that network. So I don't want to hear how it's hard to find. Okay. CW is Channel 5 in LA. It's like hearing that. So, and then me and Coach JB will be doing a live Patreon watch along stream of the fight after all of the college football. Well, that's it.
That's it. Yeah. All that's it. But that's what you get.
And I'll see you guys next week. And Thursday. I'll be on Thursday, and I'll see you the day after.
Yeah. We'll see the next week. Good luck with all the fight coverage. You know who to check out for boxing. And then, of course, for Canes on Thursdays. We appreciate you, man. Be good.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
Steve. Thank you.
All right, man. Wait, hold on. I'm not finished talking about Duffy's, man. Oh. Steve did the great read. But, yeah, listen, this is the home of the Miami Hurricanes. Pete, you know it. You're going to be out there every other day, it feels like. So if you want to catch a Pete in the wild, you can catch him at Duffy's. We'll be there actually tomorrow.
Hey,
right?
Listen, I don't know. Every other day is a lot. I don't want to do fall. I can't go there every other day. That might be a little bit of false advertising, but
you got to let him find you. You're like, it's like it's like a Pokemon, man. You got to catch him. But we'll be out there tomorrow. That's for sure. We'll be out there before it opens, I think, recording, and then we'll probably hang out a little after, right? But that's tomorrow. We'll be out at Duffy's. So
yeah,
I'll be out there.
Yep, and I'll be doing. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it today or if it's going to be tomorrow. I'll be doing a show also from our friends at Lomello's Meat Market off of 98th and US 1. Remember, guys, 10% off, right? So this Wagyu stuff, I understand. It may scare you away sometimes. You may say, "Hey, this is let me get this off here." So it's not just the Wagyu. You got the Prime and you got the 10% off with the discount code. Let's keep asking me for my zip code here. I'm gonna put something fake in here so we can get the website up here. But you see it, guys. The Australian Wagyu, Japanese Wagyu, American A5 Wagyu, tomahawk, skirt steaks, New York strip, filet, you name it, burgers, sausages. Again, if you're not in Miami, you can order. Nationwide shipping is available. CIS 10% off your order.
Man, we should I like this setup how we're just advertising all these food companies and getting fed all the time with stuff that we actually do like to eat. So it's pretty good. It's a pretty good deal. Speaking of which, we got the licking tomorrow, by the way. If anyone wants, what time
Saturday,
or not
Saturday.
tomorrow? Sorry, on Saturday for the game. So pregame. Go give the details now while we're
we'll be
hungry.
there. Our show will be starting at 11. The licking opens at noon. So obviously a 4:30 game. I know a lot of people want to get out there early. Get to the licking at noon because this is what we've been doing. If you guys have been out there, you've seen it. We go for about an hour. We hang out for 20, 30 minutes with everyone that's there. Then we go back live. Then we hang out with everyone who's there. So we're going to start the show. The pregame show will start at 11 a.m. The licking opens at noon. So get there at noon. That's when we'll be finishing up our first hour, hang out with you guys, get the food, as we've said, is absolutely unreal. The drink specials going on as well. So get out there, grab a bite to eat, start watching these noon games before you get out to the stadium. Come hang out with us at the Licking Miami Gardens. I'll be posting, more about that on social media so you guys see. But yeah, the Licking Miami Gardens. There's a few different addresses out there. It's the Miami Gardens location, right down the street from the stadium. As our boy Derek Hucks, he was out there for game 1 against Notre Dame. He says the candied yams are unbelievable, man. Yeah,
so it'll be fun, man. It'll be fun. We got a lot of eating to do this weekend, a lot of football to watch this weekend, including that top 25 matchup. I feel like we're becoming like a portal quarterback show. I know it's CJ Bailey playing tonight. So I don't know. It's amazing seeing the impact of these portal quarterbacks for the program and seeing how just confident we are that Carson Beck is going to be making the right decisions and knowing what to do with what USF throws at him. I think that's kind of the key to the game. We know they're going to run the ball, but I just think the fact that USF's defense thrives not on winning one-on-one, but there it is. Team Roffer, shout out to.
So we got Lance tomorrow, D?
I hope so. Is he around? He's on the chat. Lance, what's your schedule, man? Let us know. We're around tomorrow. But just having a guy like Carson Beck, Pete, that if you were playing USF, obviously our worries turnovers. We know man-to-man they can't keep up. But our worries turnovers, them confusing us, them throwing different looks, Todd Orlando, that whole thing. It's such a relaxing feeling to have a quarterback like Carson Beck who's been around for so long that he has the answers to the test. And, I'm not sure that if the offensive line does their job and the receivers, perform and catch the ball and be where they're supposed to be. I'm not sure they're going to do that much to confuse him given their personnel.
Yeah. We'll see. I'm not sorry. I'm dealing with something right now, D. I wasn't paying attention.
I love the candor from young Pete as he works through here. So the Jason Levely saying Heatherman's toughest challenge will be FSU because it'll basically be just him versus two great play callers in Norvell and Malzahn. I think that's. I don't know how much Norvell is going to have a role in it. Malzahn for sure. I think the fact that we play the two guys, most seasoned play callers you're dealing with really are going to be Malzahn and Braum from Louisville, as far as guys that have a distinct style that they've been doing it forever and they're going to present problems. I think those are the two you're really the most worried about. So I think one of the good things, and we'll see how it plays out, but one of the good things on paper is that you have buys before you play FSU. You have a bye before you play Louisville. So in terms of like adjusting to those weird kind of play calls, you have time. Now this system is kind of creeping up on us as far as like we have a very short amount of time to prepare for this tempo offense. I'm not sure that Heatherman's seen a ton of these just from the being in the Big Ten. I'm not sure they had a lot of offenses like this. Couldn't even think of an up-tempo offense like this in the Big Ten. So we'll see. We had experience playing against these guys last year. I'm sure he watched that tape and saw things that worked and didn't work with our personnel. But yeah, I think this week will be a big test for Heatherman, quite frankly.
Breeze asking, he says, did you guys touch on Cole and Bobby? Pete seems stressed. Is it a low injury that has him down? None of this football stuff has me stressed, my brother. I have an update on Bobby on the Discord there, so you can check that out. Cole, I have no idea on. Obviously, he's been out. And, the low injury was bad, man. That was not good.
Yeah, I think the good thing is it's not necessarily something that is going to hurt his career, right? It's not like he tore his Achilles or something. You're like, man, how's he going to come back from it? But yeah, it stinks. He's ready to play. He's a 5-star. 5 stars you don't bring into red shirt necessarily. I think the idea is you got to get him ready to play a major role next season and potentially start because you lose Ruben Bain. right? Most likely. And you're going to lose Mesidor for sure. So there's going to be a big need at defensive end. And I think with Lowe, the idea is, hey, this stinks, but get ready because we can't really work you in next year. You're going straight into the fire against South Carolina, ready to go to work. So tough injury. Obviously, we're going to need him more next year, I think, than this year, but he would have played this year. Also asking what's up with Charles Brantley. I said on the board, my understanding was there was some sort of credits issue. Nothing really Miami could do. It was just one of those things. Just, unfortunate what it is kind of deal coming from Michigan State. And he should be available pretty soon unless something has changed. But I know that was
crazy that sort of stuff isn't, he's been here for so long that it's crazy that sort of stuff isn't sorted out by now.
I mean, they knew about it. They tried. I mean, I think it was, honestly, I think from what I understand, it was just stuff that was out of our control. Because if you look at it, Miami's like with guys getting into school and stuff like that. I mean, they've been on point. They've been on remember when I first started covering the recruiting, it was always like 50-50 with so many guys like, hey, do they have that? You do not hear. I mean, you don't hear about it that much anymore across the country, but yeah, it's just crazy to me that they haven't. I mean, I say they, it's not like it's a Miami issue. This is out of their hands, but this is just the stupidity of these processes sometimes. Yeah. Let's see how it unfolds, but I think he should be okay. I mean, obviously I think Miami's cornerback room is in really, really good shape and we can withstand it, but you want him to get, I mean, he's a senior, you want him to play, you want him to be healthy, which he is, I think. And you want him to have success. So he's worked hard all summer. He's practiced all summer. He's had a good attitude from everything I've seen and done what he's supposed to do as a veteran. He brings a lot of energy. He actually is a great guy for a game like this. So I'll find out. Let me find that out. I'll make that my mission to find out if he's available this week. I haven't asked, but I'll find out. So tomorrow's show at Duffy's, I should have an update on that. Over 1,200 on live. So appreciate you guys. Like and subscribe. Also got a shout out my man Orchid Man Florida. I got to pronounce it because people hear Orkin Man. A little different. We're not no pesticides here. This is Orchid Man Florida. Landscape artisan. You had him on the show yesterday. Passionate Canes fan. Passionate about landscapes. 786-271-0332. One-stop shop to landscaping. These guys are your quarterbacks. You don't have to worry about anything. You call them up for your residence or your commercial landscape. They'll take care of the dirty work and the pretty work, sprinkler repair, irrigation, rain gutters, hurricane prep, landscape lighting, fertilizing, tree stump grinding, you name it. They do it at orchidmanflorida.com. That is orchidmanflorida.com.
Yeah, I know we're gonna wrap it up. I'm just laughing, man. I love our fans. I love the commenters. John Z saying need Justin Scott to finally have a game through 2 games after he forced a pivotal fumble against Notre Dame.
Yeah, what they run for between BC and Notre Dame, they even ran for 100 yards combined.
These standards are high. I love it.
I mean, Notre Dame did not run the ball. Do you remember how they were talking all summer about how Notre Dame was going to run for 200 yards against us and Jeremiah Love was going to win the Heisman and all this stuff? They didn't run at all, and he was healthy. I mean, defensive tackles had to do something in that game.
Man, it's fun.
But I love it, though. I appreciate the standards, John Z. I love it. Let's keep the standards high. We saw Jerome Brown. That's a standard, baby. So let's go. I appreciate that from John Z. Miami Hurricane Team Store. Those standards are always high. 20% off T-shirts. And you get 20% off your first item with Insight 20. So you want to get a hat or something, use promo code Insight 20. Get 20% off that hat. And then you can get as many shirts as you want. 20% on that list. Load up on your wardrobe at the Miami Hurricane Team Store right across the street from the University of Miami and online, Miami HTS.com. Pete, you're going to love this one. John Z says, my investigator mind feels like D Money was vet back on the old main board of Rivals. What do you see vet? Remember that guy, Pete? You don't remember that guy? Yes, I know you remember that guy. Yes, you do. See vet. Back on Rivals.
Dude, I have spotty memory from the past. I have a lot of trauma. I don't know.
Yeah, see vet. He was like an insider, pretend to be an insider on Rivals. He would always hit me up for information. I'm like, yes, sorry, man. I don't know. But yeah, that was definitely not me.
Our boy Burr says, keep Pete out of the Hard Rock for the season. We win when he's not there. Man, I haven't been going to games for 6-7 years. So there's something that's been wrong before this year.
Yeah. Yeah, by the way, so Steve, yeah, I don't have any burners that I post on. The only burner I've ever posted on is on the old West End Zone, which is the off-topic board. I used to post under the name Mel Kiper to provide scouting breakdowns on celebrity females for humor. I think that was the only alt I ever had. Pete, did you never had an alt? I don't think. Not that I recall. You were always standing in the paint with your takes. Nico Jones, save your Sunday money with Dolphins. Pack the Rock Saturday. I agree. Electric juice needed in the Rock. Michael Montabo, haven't lost in the Rock since 2023. That's true as well, man. That's true as well. So, all right, man. Well, appreciate you. We'll be. You might be on. Later today?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's going to be later today or tomorrow. Still trying to figure that out. But either way, I'll see you guys. See you guys soon. Go Canes. Hit that like and subscribe.